And hello, everyone. Welcome back to another WNEP Sports Spotlight. I am Newswatch 16 Sports Director Steve Lloyd. Joining us here today, Wilkes alum Dave Jannuzzi, all-time leading scorer. Chris Shovlin, a little time at Monmouth, also played for Coach Rick Rowe down at Wilkes. Still the all-time leading scorer at former Wilkes-Barre GAR High School. We will get into the numbers shortly, but gentlemen, thanks for driving up here today. I know you guys are busy with your AAU basketball, girls and boys, and obviously with the clutch. Busy guys, but just talk about what's been going on in your life lately, Dave, and anything else you want to share with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you having us up here. We're just in a heavy part of our years starting AAU. So just coming out of tryouts, putting things together, teams together, and starting practices. And I mean, this is definitely the craziest time of year because high school sports is still going on. So we're still following all of our players, and still going. We're fortunate to have some of the girls from Crestwood still playing and Northwest area. So we're pretty excited about that. But, AAU season starts before the high school season ends. So it kind of runs into each other. So it's a busy time of season.
Got to get those tryouts in and take a look at some of the kids. Chris, what have you been working on lately?
For the most part, like Dave said, the tryouts, I think this year is a record number of teams we've had. So just trying to, adjust and get everyone in for their practice times, put them where they need to be. That's about it. Busy.
What the age group for your AAU teams? Where does that begin? What age do the girls and boys kind of start out at? When do you start looking at them?
Yeah, I mean we have as young as second grade,
Okay.
Like 8 years old, all the way up to we have a senior team too. So for any kids that are 12th graders, but uncommitted, we have a team for that. So we go from that's a pretty wide range, so about 8 to 18. So we cover all ages, and it seems to have worked out. The younger you start them, if the parents want them to get involved, it seems like out of the area. I mean, when you go to these tournaments, there's teams at 8U, and so if you're not offering it, giving kids an opportunity in this area to start that young, by the time you get started, you end up being behind, other areas. So, we're just trying to offer what else is out there and put our own spin on it.
Per team, what do you have? About 12 boys and girls per team, would you say?
No.
Smaller
We
smaller
definitely,
rosters?
we definitely keep it. We try to have no more than 9 kids.
Okay.
Once in a while, we'll have a team with 10 just because there's nowhere else to put anybody. But we try to keep it 8 and 9. So everybody gets an opportunity to play, and the practices are very competitive, and there's not too many kids. We try to do our best with that.
Take me through the tryout process. What facility do you use, and how long of a process is that to then pick the team?
Yeah, I mean, we were fortunate back in 2018 to partner up with the Catholic Youth Center in Wilkes-Barre, so, everything runs out of there. But, our tryouts are mostly, we call them tryouts, but they're mostly evaluations, so when you're in you're running the tryouts and you have the different grades, if you end up with, multiple teams in a grade, and you just kind of, evaluate where the kids are at, where they would best go. Because when you go to, travel tournaments, AAU tournaments, they have all different divisions. So you want to make sure you put the kids, where they should be when they're going to compete against people, teams from out of the area. So, the tryouts are mostly for evaluations, and we do our best to, put kids where they need to be so they have the best experience possible. So that's mostly what our tryouts are for. And it's sometimes difficult, but, we almost never, unless it's absolutely necessary, cut kids. So, we take, kids that are high-level kids, all-stars, MVPs, ready to go to college and play, and then we take kids that never played basketball before, So we know through the process of, development, growth, physical development, we try to leave it open for everybody because you never know, how kids are going to go through puberty, how they're going to grow, are they going to fall in love with the sport, so on and so forth. So we try to find a place for everybody.
Chris, what specific places do you travel to? And then when does this kind of kick in? You start playing games April, and then it kind of runs through the summer?
Yeah, so our like elementary, middle school teams start at the end of March. Their typical season runs from end of March till mid-June. They compete anywhere from New Jersey to Philadelphia, New York, basically the tri-state area for the most part for the younger groups. Our older groups are 9 through 12, to which we consider, they're called circuit teams. Over the last 7 years we've been in business, we've, established ourselves in a lot of these tournaments where now they have circuits. You're invited to compete on a circuit, and they put you in positions for our older kids to be seen by coaches. So fortunately for us, on the boys' side, we are able to accept an invite from an organization called Zero Gravity. So now they have we have a circuit team called ZGXL that they compete in, tournaments from here to Boston. Puts them in positions during the live periods of the season where, they're able to showcase their talents in front of, college coaches. And on the girls' side, we were fortunate enough to compete in the hoop group circuit last year. And one of our girls' teams, the 16U, was involved in sort of like a play-in where you had to win throughout the season. And come July, you had to compete in a tournament to basically become a showcase league. And, they performed really well last year, ended up winning it. A couple of our girls on the team were offered after the season from multiple Division I schools, which now put us in a position where we have partnered on the girls' side with Team Pennsylvania out of Harrisburg to compete in the Nike circuit, which is coming up, which means that it's a lot of traveling. These girls will be anywhere from Iowa to Kentucky, Virginia, so they'll be kind of all over the place this year. But, it's fortunate for us, what we were able to accomplish in the last 7 years with these group of kids.
We've seen such great basketball in the District 2 playoffs. The kids got a chance to play down at the arena. I don't know if you guys made it down to some of the games, but who specifically, a couple boys, couple girls, juniors, seniors that are going to graduate that have really kind of excelled in your program?
I mean, on the boys' side, my own kids, had a really good season. So I mean, he's probably our top player. But we have, kids like Michael Keating, who had a great year at Wilkes-Barre, Matthias Mitchell over at Nanticoke, who had team had a tough season, but kids, it was an all-star, very good player. A couple kids up at Dallas, Pat Flanagan, Joey Nacito, Tice Mason. I think those guys have a really good shot to go on and play college basketball, whether it be at the Division III, Division II level. Maybe even higher depending on how they do this season. I mean, like Chris said, we're fortunate enough to, over the past couple of years, to do really well in the tournaments and be invited on to the circuits that we are. And the reason why, it's beneficial to be on those circuits is those circuits they only invite you on to play on their circuit, their leagues, because, you have college level players. So they need teams that have college level players to play on their circuit. So they have when they're sending out their promotional stuff to the college coaches, that they are able to get them to come to their tournament. So we've had a very successful run over the last couple of years from a building up standpoint on the boys' side, and I think this is probably going to be our best year by far.
Yeah, it seems like the net effect. You look what the Hazleton girls were able to do with Coach Gavio. Now, Crestwood, obviously in a state semifinal in 5A. Who are a couple of girls that have really kind of stood out for you, Chris?
So we have a bunch of them girls. They have played for us for multiple years. On the girls' side,
the two. You start by talking about the two that aren't even playing.
Yeah, there's two girls who were out due to injury all season, who didn't even get a chance to really, play this year, and that's Molly Walsh and Kiara Darty from Crestwood. That's where it kind of started. Co-MVP Alexis Reimhold from Hazleton is another one. That group, because they're all 2026s, am I right?
Yeah, 2026.
2026s. That group, even for the program, have been with us since 5th, 6th grade. You know, and the development and, you know, drive for the game from then until now, like, you can see it, you know. And, you know, we were fortunate enough to just be on the ride with them. And then you have your sophomore class, girls like Charlie Hiller, Sophia Benyo from Hazleton, Charlie's from Crestwood, Mariah Marolo from Hazleton. I think we had, what was it, six of the 7 or 7 of the 8 girls from Hazleton that all have played for us over the past couple of years. Same thing with Crestwood. So, you know, it shows, you know, like, you know, kind of what, you know, we set out to do 7 years ago, you know, by seeing just what they're doing in high school, in their high school seasons. And that was kind of our mission, was to bring some kind of recognition down to the Wyoming Valley, because we never thought there was enough. And I think we are, you know, on that track of doing that.
Yeah, I think we had all, you know, we've always believed that we had plenty of talent, you know, to play at higher levels. And, you know, we have one who's, you know, didn't end up going far didn't get to the States, but I mean, Ella Stanbaugh from Seminary, you know, won the Player of the Year in the Division II. I mean, she's got 6 Division I offers, you know. So between her and Charlie Hiller and Sophia Benyo, they all got offered multiple offers, you know, after the summertime. So this is going to be a big year for them and a big year for the girls' side, because, you know, once 1 or 2 or 3 Division I's come in, the rest of the teams in the conference start coming in. I mean, I was just, you know, I don't know about Chris, but I was just on the message string with, you know, coaches from Villanova and Manhattan, you know, that are very interested in coming to see those girls play.
Yeah, you guys build something, that graph, it kind of starts to go, and then it spirals out. You look at the Lackawanna League with Toomey down at North Carolina, obviously Murray out at Penn State, Cranston just had a great season with the Lady Royals again. You got Rachel Rose in the portal coming out of Wofford. I mean, she's going to kind of land somewhere. And then obviously Kylie Lavelle, who's transferred a couple times, having a pretty good career at St. John's. But between the Lackawanna League and the Wyoming Valley Conference, a lot of great basketball.
Loaded, yep,
yeah.
It's loaded.
Well, we've got the business side with Dave Jannuzzi and Chris Shovlin. When we come back, these guys, they've had an illustrious career themselves way back in the day. We'll talk about that and more next on the WNEP Sports Spotlight. Stay with us. And welcome back to the WNEP Sports Spotlight. I'm Sports Director Steve Lloyd. Joining us once again, Dave Jannuzzi, Chris Shovlin. If you've been around the area for a while, you probably got a chance to see these guys play over in the gym at Myers and up on the hill at GAR. We'll start with Chris first. 2004 grad, all-time leading scorer, still at GAR, I guess in school history, if you involve the Wilkes-Barre area school district and the Wolfpack. 2,564 points. I guess take me back to when you were a kid, and you know, your family and your siblings and what you were involved in. Did you play little league baseball? Were you into football? Like what made you gravitate towards having that basketball in your hands?
So I've you know, my dad was always an athlete. Always kept some type of ball in my hand growing up. But I had 3 older brothers, and they had a love for basketball. One that played at GAR, and then 2 other ones that just loved to do it. So I was always the baby out of the bunch. I would be the kid that would be stuck in the yard while, you know, neighborhood kids plus my brothers would be in the back in the alley playing basketball. Dad stuck a hoop up on the tree, and, you know, I just kind of fell in love with it ever since then, you know.
Chris, they always say lefties kind of have something, you know, whether you're a pitcher, but was there something about when you knew you were a left-handed kid with basketball that you're going to be a little special?
As I got older, once I started playing at the CYC, you know, at a younger age, I felt, it was a little different than what you see everybody else is. Typically, everybody on the basketball court's right-handed. I mean, what is there, 5% of us? So it was different, and I just kind of used it to my advantage, But the type of stuff that exists now, as far as training and strength and agility and all that, it didn't exist back then. So you relied on going to playgrounds and playing pickup basketball, or just out in the backyard, using your imagination to compete against people. So I think I owe a lot to my brothers for always taking me to the park with them, or down to the YMCA or CYC, and letting me play with all the older guys. I played with all older guys since a young kid, and I think that is what really drove me to love the game.
Do you remember when you hit 1,000? And if you can talk about that a little bit, and then obviously the drive to reach 2. I don't think I was there when you hit 1,000, but I was there the night you went over 2,000, and obviously family and friends. It was kind of emotional.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting. Not a lot of players get to that point. So being able to do that, and I believe I did it my sophomore year, if I'm not mistaken. It was incredible. It was exciting. Back then, you didn't have nothing but newspapers and the news watch, so you had to tune into TV at a certain time, or wake up in the morning and read a newspaper to see what's going on, or you had to attend the game. So I think back then, the excitement around everything was a little different. So I mean, it was awesome. You can't put words to it.
We'll get back to you more on your career at GAR. Dave, you played at Myers. I'm not sure how many points you scored at Myers, but at Wilkes, all-time leading scorer still to this day, 2,132 points. We'll talk about your career at Wilkes, which was just unbelievable, but take me back to your youth days, maybe some other sports that you played, and kind of how you got into, being part of the Mohawks and playing basketball there at Myers.
Yeah, I don't think my story is much different than Chris's. My dad, loved playing basketball. We were homeschooled, me and my siblings. But he would always take us, Kingston Rec, down the park. Even if, he was playing in games with older guys, and he would just bring us, So I was, very blessed to, have a dad that, was very active and loved that sport, and never really, forced it on me, He would just bring us, he'd bring us, and, we'd either get to watch, or, if there was another gym or court to play on, we would go play. But I found myself, even at times when, he would go bring it, when he would bring us over to the Kingston Rec, and there's 2 gyms going, and one side would be the side he's playing on with the older guys, and the younger guys would be playing on the other side. I would find myself a lot just sitting on and watching the older guys play, and I kind of just fell in love with, the game and how it was played, and, then, go on my own and try to duplicate the stuff I saw from the, adults, And then, as I got old enough, into being a teenager, he'd get me into the games, and like Chris said, playing against older guys, whether it be older teenagers or older, men. It drove my desire to be as good as they were. And having an older brother that was very good at basketball, really better than me up until probably my, sophomore year in college, that drove me to compete with him, and, made me want to be competitive and be better. And basketball, just like Chris said, it just, there was something about it that, I just fell in love with, So when I had my first opportunity to go play for high school, school was 9th grade. Coach Joe Long, who's friends with my dad, played with him over at the Kingston Rec and other places. Was like, hey, you probably should have your kids come play for Myers. So in 9th grade was my first organized basketball, and just from all the time I spent playing on my own, I found myself being, probably the best player on that team freshman year, just the freshman team, and figured, all of a sudden I realized I'm going to be pretty good at this thing. And as I got into high school the following year, my sophomore season, that year we were really, really good. The team I played on, coming off the bench, we made it the district championship and played against Bishop Holben, against Jay Williams, Mike Baruch, and those guys. And that kind of set the fire underneath me to work really hard at the sport and drove me through high school and getting into college.
Talk about the glory days in the MAC down at Wilkes, Coach Rick Rode. What do you remember the most?
The fans. The fans. There was nothing like it. I mean, anybody who got to watch that time frame of basketball will, I would say the same thing. The basketball was great. We had us, Kings and Wilkes, were all teams that made it into the tournament, and us and Scranton, were nationally ranked. I know we were every single year, and my senior year we were number one in the country for a couple weeks, and sophomore year made it to the Final Four. I mean, you remember all those achievements, winning or otherwise. The losses, fortunately, there was few of them, so they're easy to remember. But the thing you remember the most is walking into games 3 weekends in a row against Scranton University, and not even being able to get in the gym yourself as a player because the people waiting to get in was around the block. The Sweet 16 and Elite game that we hosted to get to the Final Four. I mean, I don't think there was, less than 4,500 people. There was standing room only if you can get in. So those are the things I remember the most, and I will always remember the support that, the people from this area, not the media as well, would give me and the teams that I played on. It was an enjoyable time.
I want to ask you guys a little bit about Bobby Sura. We got a chance years ago, Jimmy Coles and I, to go out to Cleveland. I think Mike Fratello was the coach. Zildrunas Ilgauskas, 7-footer, was on the team. Danny Ferry was on the team. Bobby was gracious with his time. An unbelievable talent. Probably the best to come out of the Valley, in my estimation. Are there guys that you guys looked up to when you were kids growing up?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Bobby, especially because we went to the same school, and my dad used to take me to all the games when I was a kid. So, he was a guy you just look up to, and just like he said, you get into a gym where you can't move, and that feeling, I think, as a kid, when my dad used to take me, is a feeling that I wanted eventually, just to be able to play in some type of atmosphere like that. But absolutely, guys like him, even guys like Dave, I was a little bit younger, so, growing up, these guys were the guys that were in the papers or on TV, so, that's all a drive for someone to want to be as good or even be better, So, yeah, absolutely.
How much did you work on your shot?
A lot. A lot. I would do it every day. Probably that's all I would do is shoot the ball for hours. I would literally be in the backyard by myself, and in my imagination, I would be playing Larry Bird, Michael Jordan. Writing down on a notebook of what the scores were after the game and things of that nature. But and I hate to say it, athletes are better now. They're stronger, they're faster, but kids nowadays don't have the imaginations we had, or how we had to do things. Not that that's given to them, but everything's out there for them to go take it. You know what I mean? So I always say this to Dave and a couple other guys. It was just different growing up for us. You were able to go down to the playgrounds. You would have to wait to get on the basketball court. It's not really the same anymore, and I think that's even one of the reasons why we started what we did, because we gave them a place where 365 days a year we run basketball, and that opportunity, I think it has done well for the kids in this area.
Dave, you probably wouldn't be where you are today personally and professionally if it wasn't for Coach Rick Rode. What made you want to go there? what made him turn you into the player that you became? I mean, just pure excitement in the March Center, and Coach Rickroad was there for the whole run.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I guess I probably first met Coach Rickroad, I don't know, maybe when I was 16. But I would say the main reason why I went to Wilkes was, I mean, that guy is probably the best recruiter there is. I mean, he can convince you to do anything. He can convince you. But he was great because he would come to my house, right, for his whatever visit that you'd have, and he was like, sit down. He'd talk to me for I don't know, 30 seconds, and they'd say, "Hey, Dave, all right, I got to talk to your parents." So he'd send me away, which is probably right because I didn't, what do I want to talk to him, for longer than a minute or two. And then he'd sit and talk to my parents, and I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour, and then all of a sudden he was leaving. So I think he spent far more time, in the recruiting process talking to my parents because, he probably understood that they had a big influence on my life, and that was the best way for him to get me to go there. I mean, I only had, one scholarship offer coming out of high school anyway, but a lot of D3s that were interested. So, there was definitely other places that I could have chose to go, but it wasn't very hard for him to sell me to go to Wilkes because he had just come off going to 2 Elite Eights, and they were nationally ranked. And I knew I wanted to play professional basketball when I was done. I wanted to have an opportunity, and because I didn't have the looks from higher level, I knew I needed to go to a place, and I wanted to go to a place to win, but I needed to go to a place that I could have an opportunity to be recognized nationally. So Wilkes was that place for me coming out of high school, and I was very fortunate to graduate in a time where Wilkes was one of the best teams in the country and getting a lot of publicity. I mean, I remember my senior year, being in homeroom and them putting the video up on the TVs in homeroom of Jay Williams being on ESPN after he hit like 4 threes in the Sweet 16 game, or I think it was the Sweet 16 game, to go to the Elite Eight and then them winning overtime. I'm thinking to myself, I played against Jay Williams 2 years ago, his sophomore year, and almost beat him, and he's on ESPN. I think I'm going to go to Wilkes, But Jerry just allowed me to be me at Wilkes. I mean, I remember first, summertime when they started doing, workouts, weightlifting and stuff like that, and then school starting and getting up, 6 o'clock in the morning, getting dropped off at the gym to do the lifting, and then, hopping over his makeshift office at that time to sleep on his couch, and then he'd get in there at 7:30, and he's like, "Hey, what's up?" Because he knew that's what I was going to be. He just let me do what I needed to do and wanted to do, and we became very very good partners from a coach-player standpoint, because he knew I had the team's best interest on the court, and he had my best interest off the court, while he was coaching. So we coexisted very well. We were, I think, a perfect match for that time.
Well, a little bit of personal history, basketball history with Dave Jannuzzi and Chris Shovlin. When we come back, we'll talk about where this Clutch name came from, how these guys became owners, and we'll talk a little bit about the ABA team, who's doing very well. Got some players out there like Jamie Calloway, etc. When we come back, more with the WNEP Sports Spotlight. Stay with us. Well, welcome back to the WNEP Sports Spotlight. I'm Sports Director Steve Lloyd. Dave Jannuzzi, Wilkes star, Chris Shovlin, GAR grad, outstanding career Had a little time at Monmouth, also a little time with the Wilkes Colonels. Whoever wants to take this question, Clutch, Wyoming Valley Clutch ABA team, where did the name come from?
Did I come up with it?
If I say I came up with it, you're going to get mad at me. Yes, you came up with it.
Yeah, I believe I came up with it. I mean, just thinking back on both of our careers, you know. Me more so high school, him more so college. But I just feel as, you know, game's on the line. You know, the ball goes into the right man's hands and he makes things happen. And, you know, that's kind of where the idea of Clutch came in. Probably throughout my high school career, I've hit a, you know, massive amount of buzzer beaters. And I'm sure he did the same with Wilkes in, you know, when need be. And I just felt like that's, you know, where that name came from. So as far as our, you know, younger program, we, you know, call it Junior Clutch. And then with the ABA, we call it Wyoming Valley Clutch.
Real quick, with funny story in that, with, I mean, no less than, it was before our first ABA started. We had a preseason game against Binghamton, who's, you know, been our arch rival. And it went down to the final second, and he hit a buzzer beater to start our clutch career, our ABA clutch career. He hit a buzzer beater against what will become our arch rival. So it's a fitting name for our organization.
So from an ownership perspective, you guys took over in 2018. We fast forward now 2025. Dave, I know you stepped in and took over for Coach Rick Road and coached the team a little bit. You're going to kind of give that up and look for a coach here down the road. But talk about the success of the Wyoming Valley Clutch in the ABA over the years. You guys initially owners, players. As time has gone on, your roles have changed, but you've had some incredible talent. I know Peter Alexis played on the team for a while. Still have Jim and Jamie Calloway, you know, out there balling. But tough loss over the weekend, and season's over. But just talk about the success since 2018 with the team.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite frankly, I mean, it's ours. So I hate to, you know, say a lot of, you know, overly good about it. I mean, it's pretty crazy when we decided to start a semi-professional basketball team, which I had done. You know, I mean, I had probably played 12 years of semi-pro basketball before we started this. To think that we would be able to start our own professional basketball team in the area and then have the success winning that we've had since 2018. I mean, right off the first year, you know, being able to put together a team with Coach Rick Road to go 19-3 the first year and go deep into the playoffs, and then have a year where we went 20-0 and finished the season, the COVID year, undefeated and number one in the country, and then be able to get down to the Final Four in St. Louis a couple years after that was just, I mean, it's pretty incredible. Because the one thing I always said, I don't know if I had more offers, from high levels, would I have gone? Probably, but I would not have got the experience that I had playing in front of my hometown, from my high school career, college career, and now, you know, to have had an opportunity to play some professional basketball in front of my hometown fans or hometown people. If I could go, you know, back and say, well, would I trade that for a Division I scholarship? No, not even close. The people in this area, when you're good, when you give them back when you give to them what they're willing to give to you, there's no better fans in the entire world. So we've had a really, really fun run, up to this point with the professional basketball team, and to kind of be able to start it as players and owners, bring Jerry on board, and then have a couple good years as players, and then kind of, shift our way into other roles in the organization, and have some of these younger guys that like you mentioned, Jamie Calloway from Wyoming Valley West, Will Johnson from GR. We just have guys that, that our ABA was never going to be a situation where we're looking for talent that we're trying to pull in from all over the place just because, wow, they're really good, you know? We always wanted to do exactly what we're trying to do with our younger group. We want to bring recognition to the players, kids in our area. So that's why we built our professional team around players from our area that, you know, either just didn't get the recognition coming out of high school or college, and we'll continue to do that. You know, there's guys that we have on our radar to bring in to fill some roles, and you know, come next year that played local college basketball around here, and give them an opportunity to continue to do what they love to do, you know, as long as they can, and that makes us feel really, really good, you know, from that standpoint, you know.
Chris, final thoughts on the Clutch, and then I have a final question for you guys revolving around the NCAA tournament. I'll get your picks and who's going to win the NBA World Championship. But first, just make a comment on the Clutch ABA team and, you know, what it meant to be an owner first and then having a chance to play a few years.
Yeah, I mean, like he said earlier about the fans and the people in our area, you know, once we started this, you know, it was like seeing old faces, not just for us, but just for everyone. Like, guys that we had on the team are basically built from the Luzerne County area, some from Lackawanna, but, you know, they have people that followed them throughout their careers, and they had great careers. So I think it meant a lot to the people even in the area to be able to come out and still see kids that they followed all their lives, which is, you know, part of the reason why we've started this. And at the same time, even with our youth program, what it does is it brings them to a game where they're watching, you know, a semi-professional basketball team, and, you know, whether that be a goal of theirs or even higher that, they see what the amount of work they put in, you know, to play at that level, which, you know, they go hand in hand with each other. So I think that is, you know, really important to the youth out here, being able to watch guys like that play.
All right, do you have a pick for the NCAA men's tournament winner?
I'm going to go with Houston.
NCAA women's tournament winner.
Oh, jeez. Notre Dame?
Oh, you're like Luch.
Dave, men's tournament champ.
I'm going with Duke. Duke. I like their roster.
And who do you like in the women's tournament?
South Carolina. I don't want them to win, but South Carolina's just loaded all the time. So
all the time.
And final question: we will have a lot of games here on WNEP and ABC when the NBA finals roll around. Who do you like to win the world title? I know the Celtics are trying to go back to back.
I mean, listen, my dad was a Celtics fan, is a Celtics fan. I was a Lakers fan, so I definitely don't want the Celtics to win. I can tell you that. My kid's in love with Oklahoma City. One of my kids in love with them. I would say they're too young to win it, so I'm going to go with Celtics. I got to go with the Celtics.
Beast of the East.
That people don't talk about enough, and they had, you know, they're one of, I think, 5 teams to have, what is it, a 52-10 record?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Cleveland.
Stop it. Stop.
Cleveland.
They're going to be out.
Cavs are top team in the East right now.
Cleveland.
I think overall, too, they have the best record.
Yep.
Not anymore. They just lost.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate your time coming up here, making the drive up from Luzerne County. We have always enjoyed, you know, spending time with you guys and showcasing what you guys have, you know, to offer to the area, which I think is just a lot of camaraderie and expertise in basketball. And you give these kids, you know, an education, and you give them a chance and kind of show them the ropes. But we appreciate your time here on the WNEP Sports Spotlight, and we will have more fabulous guests like you down the road. Good luck in all your ventures, and appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here on the WNEP Sports Spotlight. Until the next time, I'm Sports Director Steve Lloyd. Make it a great day.